Hey everyone. Well, the lake is dry, but it is beautiful out here. Anyway, I shouldn't say it's dry, it's just super low, as you can see. Junie and I are out on a walk, and I wanted to post a quick video. I'm going to actually flip my camera around so that I can sort of pay attention to where we're walking. Do that. So I had a student recently bring up a really good question. I have to untangle myself from her leash. And that is, when is it a good time to put a piece of writing away? I don't know that she was specifically talking about for good, or if it was to shelve a story for a while. But regardless of which one she meant, I have the same answer, and we're untangling. Oh yeah, that lake is really pretty low. Look at that. It's going to be a mud puddle soon. So regardless of which one she meant, my answer is the same. It is always a good time to put a piece of writing away. What do I mean by that? So let's say you have you consider it to be a really successful story, or a novel-length manuscript or nonfiction manuscript, and you are loving this thing. You're feeling like it's strong, it's tightly written, maybe you've already done some revision and editing, and you're feeling pretty good about it. My advice to you before sort of proceeding, whatever proceeding would look like, maybe that is trying to get an agent, sending out queries. Maybe you have an agent, maybe it's sending it to your agent. Definitely before self-publishing, my advice is always put it away for a while. It doesn't have to be forever. We're going to find a place to sit. It doesn't have to be forever. It can be for a few days, a few weeks, maybe a few months. I actually have it's not novel length yet, but it will be a manuscript. Here's a log. I'm gonna park it, even if Jimmy is restless to keep walking. Hopefully the wind isn't too bad because I'm in the trees. So I have a manuscript. It's not novel length yet, but it will be, hopefully, fingers crossed, soon. And sorry, I gotta adjust my camera a little bit. And I pretty much for this winter and this spring so far have shelved it because it's just been a crazy time. My work has been really busy. I have Bella, my horse, who showed up, for anyone who is familiar with that. If you've looked back at my other videos, she has her own story. And so the manuscript, I've taken it out and tinkered with it a little bit every once in a while, but it's really been put away for a while. Did I worry about that? Not really. I wasn't on any kind of a deadline. This doesn't have any first rights of refusal waiting on it. I don't have an agent who's tapping his or her fingers restlessly waiting for me to send the next thing. And so it's just sort of my own timeline, and I wasn't putting pressure on myself about this. I really love the story. I have good feelings about this manuscript. So putting it away, if anything, I didn't feel this huge urgency in writing it in the first place. So putting it away, if anything, I feel has given it time to sort of percolate, to sort of gel a little bit in my mind. And there are a few things actually that have occurred to me, just sort of coming up from the subconscious, I think, that I either want to add or I want to change direction on. So that's been really good. So that's just one example of what I mean. Okay, let's take sort of a more extreme example. Let's say you've been working on a manuscript or a story or a screenplay, whatever it might be, and you've really put in time and effort. I'm going to switch hands. You've really put your life into this. It's really important to you. So let's say you wake up one day, or it's a dawning realization maybe over several weeks, and you read this thing through and you realize this is a hot mess. This isn't what I intended it to be, and it's not in a good way. Not like, oh, it surprised me and the story took some interesting turns. It's like, no, this isn't good. Or another thing that can happen is you start to do your market research and you realize this has been done. Not exactly, but this has kind of been done. And if I'm going to send this out to agents, publishers, or try to self-publish, how am I going to pitch this? Because it's right away people will say, oh, sounds just exactly like blah, blah, blah. And they would be right. Hi, sweetheart. Hi. You want some water? She wants to get walking again is what she wants to do. So we have our handy little walking water. We have our walking water. So that's another sort of extreme example, but that does happen. And there's really any number of things that could happen where you look at it and just for whatever reason you're not happy. And your first instinct, the big dramatic writerly thing to do, the big cinematic writerly thing to do would be to just throw the typewriter out the window, or of course it would be a computer probably, although some people still do type on typewriters, or crumple up the papers, dramatically and throw them in the trash and, burn the manuscript, whatever. Here's another option. Just put it away. I can't tell you the number of times I have put a piece of writing away, resisting that instinct, resisting that impulse to get rid of it entirely. Sorry, I gotta have you look at Junie again. Resisting that impulse to just trash it because I'm just disgusted, or it's not what I thought it would be, and I just feel like I can't write. What are words? What is this? It's horrible. But instead, in this day and age, it's so easy, right? To just save the file, forget about it. Used to be, I'd have a printed out manuscript. I am dating myself there, but that's okay. And the temptation to do something dramatic with it was really strong. But I can't count the number of times I put something away, maybe even forgot about it because it was put away for so long. And then eventually when I came back to it, it was maybe it was still bad. It's not that it wasn't disappointing or bad anymore, but it had pieces that could be salvaged. And that has happened where I have actually salvaged bits and pieces from old manuscripts, and they have been woven into or turned into, they've sort of become and evolved into something completely new. And I think that has actually been the case with probably most of my published novels. You start in one direction, you end up having to change course, and maybe that is a quick course change, or maybe it is one of those you put it away for weeks, months, years maybe. I know as writers we often have ideas that swirl around in our heads for years, or a theme, or a scene, or a little bit of dialogue. It can just be a fragment of something. It doesn't have to be a whole complete story with a whole narrative arc, right? And I think that's a very writerly thing. So do something with those, write them down, get them down. But if you start to develop them and then whatever it is that develops just is not working for you, let me see her. I can't tell if we're on her or not. If whatever it is isn't working for you in its quote-unquote final product, which nothing is ever final until it's actually published. And even then, if you indie publish something, you can actually make changes. But let's say traditional publishing, until you publish it, changes can generally be made. In traditional publishing, those timelines get a little tight because there's first pass, there's different rounds of revision and editing that have to happen. But I would say it's always okay to put a piece of writing away. And if something, I'll get back to the sort of the thought and finish that first. If something that you've been working on isn't panning out, or you think it is, but then after some time it's not, and you're discouraged because you've put time and effort and all of this energy into it, again, be patient. Look at the long game. Play the long game. Don't just think, if I look at this and it's not working, that's it. It's terrible. I can't write. I don't know what words are. Don't do that. Just realize that sometimes it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back, or 1 step forward, 2 steps back. And that can be the evolution of a story. And I do not believe at all that a great story necessarily has to have a great origin story of its own. I don't believe that a great story sort of springs from the author's mind and the road is smooth and it's such a great concept and the execution is so beautiful that there are no missteps and it barely needed editing. I don't believe that at all. I think some of the greatest stories have been absolute torture for the authors to write. If you read any author bios, whether they're from yesteryear or modern, you will probably, or if you follow authors on social media, you'll probably see, wow, this story really kicked my butt. This story, I loved the concept, I had a vision, but boy, bringing that to fruition was really hard. And I had all these things happen, and maybe in your personal life, your work life, your health, whatever it might be, things can happen and things can interrupt the process. I've spoken about that elsewhere on the podcast. Or maybe you just look at it one day, like we're talking about today. You just look at it one day and you go, ugh, this is garbage. Don't let that be the end of that story. Don't let that be the end of your story as a writer, for sure. But don't even let it be the end of the story. Put it away, and when you pull it out again, you might, or open up the file again, let's say. I always envision just like the writer's closet, the writer's vault. When you open that file again and look at it, the odds are you're going to see something. There's going to be a glimmer. There's going to be something in there where you go, ooh, that's a nice little turn of phrase, or wow, I came up with that, or I really still like this concept, but now I can see what needs to happen with it. I turned west when I should have turned north in this one scene, and now, because time has passed, I actually have a sense of, I think I can fix this. I can course correct this. So those are my thoughts. My arm's getting really tired. Junie has been very patient, so I'm going to wrap this up here. But share your thoughts. Have you ever had that happen where you've been working on something and you loved it, and then time went on and you worked really hard, not something you just dashed off, but something you really put time and energy and sort of your life force into, and then one day, you didn't like it. What did you do with it? Did you trash it permanently? Did you put it away? Did you bring it back out? Is it still put away and you haven't looked at it? I would love to hear from you, because I think this is something that is universal to most writers. All right, guys, I gotta wrap this up. The dog is pulling my arm off. Okay, I'll see you soon.